Tommaso Di Dario, the cultural attaché from the Spanish Embassy. The man who probably won't admit it, but certainly is one of the key orchestrators of this whole vision, Elias Mas Serra, who is both an architect within the city and an architect of private practice, as well as conceiving this whole project. And it is a great pleasure to welcome Dr. Santiago Calatrava, who's one of these projects is central in remaking Bilbao. We will have brief presentations and then discussion on what this all means, and it will be shared by Dennis Shaw. Let's welcome everyone.
Thank you very much indeed. It's very good to see such a lively audience on the hottest day of the year. It's rather a Spanish day, isn't it? Unfortunately, due to the problems of getting to central London from Heathrow, Santiago was held up. Apologies for our delay, therefore. What we want to draw your attention to is the celebration at the Royal Festival Hall of Bilbao 2000, an exhibition which was initiated originally by myself and Santiago Calatrava to try and present the work of a city coping with the problems of rusty, derelict, out-of-date central areas, caused mainly by the change in industry and the need to modernise. By some sheer chance, and we'll hear a bit more in a moment, the town is now to be the residence of the only Guggenheim museum outside the United States. And Frank Gehry, as you probably know, is building that. Included in many of the other projects are internationally known architects, including Santiago Calatrava, who is designing the bridge, the footbridge in the centre of the city, and the outlying airport terminal. Cesar Pelli, who's involved in the business district. James Sterling and Wilford, designing the intermodal, the passenger interchange building, and the underground system, Metro 2000, the Metro 2000, designed by Norman Foster. What we're going to try and do over the next few weeks while the Royal Festival Hall exhibition is on is to arrange a series of lectures around the theme of the renewal of Bilbao. This is the first of those series. On the 27th of May, Michael Wilford will be introducing his new scheme on the Abando, the intermodal interchange, and developing his ideas for that. We're hoping too that Gary will be in the AA before the end of the month, probably in the early part of June of next month. So it leaves me with a great honour and the privilege of introducing the city architect, Elias Mas, to explain the context of these buildings within the region of the Basque Country, and in particular in Bilbao, and then ask Santiago Calatrava to talk briefly on his two major projects of the city. Thank you for coming. Yes.
Good afternoon. Before starting my paper, I should like to thank the conference organizers for their kindness in asking me to be here today. In the next few weeks, I hope to be able to transmit to you an image of Bilbao as it is now and of the efforts we are making to regenerate its metropolitan area. Bilbao is a port city which was founded in the 14th century on a site which marked the outlet of a major route from the inland areas to the coast with a navigable estuary which allowed the port to be established upriver. Bilbao was always had links with trade and shipping. Furthermore, the area was, and indeed still is, mined for iron ore which in time made for the establishment of large-scale iron and steel and shipbuilding industries. From its beginnings as a medieval town, Bilbao has grown in this context. In the last century, the extension scheme known as the ensanche, literal gardening, was carried out, and the city has continued to expand to form the present metropolitan area. The present conurbation extends from the medieval town all the way to the Bay of Biscay, making it the third largest in Spain. Bilbao is also natural capital of the Basque Country and of a large surrounding area, including the French Basque Country, Navarra, La Rioja, Burgos, and Santander. However, this large metropolitan area is now undergoing a profound crisis. It can be considered as a region in decline. Apart from decayed residential areas, it is also littered with large areas of industrial ruins and areas where urban development can begin to impinge on rural districts before the economic crisis stopped construction. Sorry. This has left residual areas on the fringes of the city which are not truly urban but whose rural use is severely limited. There is also environmental and industrial pollution to be taken into account. The population of Bilbao itself is 450,000, and the whole metropolitan area has a total of 1 million inhabitants. Its influence makes itself felt over an hinterland containing around 3 million people. Town planning in the Basque Country underwent radical changes with the advent of democracy in Spain in the late 70s. Basque autonomy has led to authority for town planning being passed over to the regional government, which in turn has devolved into the different historical territories which make up Euskadi, as the Basque Autonomous Community is known. In this context, the Basque Country Land Use Act restricts planning activity on several levels, of which three merit special mention here. First, the Land Use Directives, which form the master plan for land use throughout the region. Secondly, the territorial plans, which support land use schemes in particular districts. And thirdly, the general land use plans for municipal areas. In the case of Bilbao, the Land Use Directive have enabled the city to determine the extent and nature of its leading role, the geo-economic functions and the scale of the different areas under its influence at different levels. The territorial plan for Metropolitan Bilbao set out the strategy for recovery and reclassifying the land immediately surrounding the city itself. It tests the other part of the conurbation and for determining how the present public of the area, both physical and social, should be restructured to meet the new requirements made of the metropolitan area. This includes the setting up of focal points for activity at different levels within the metropolitan area. The idea is to establish the nature of the districts lost in the general process of marginalization, which resulted from the disorderly occupation and disorganized use of land of former years. On a more specific level, the general land use plan for Bilbao, approved this year is aimed at specifically applying the criteria of the land use directive and the territorial plan to the city. The general plan provides funds specifically to respond to Bilbao's position as the economic capital of a broad region. At the same time, redevelopment work is beginning on the land occupied by derelict and semi-derelict industrial and port facilities in the center and on the fringes of the city, in line with the new physical and social structure envisaged in the territorial plan. Finally, the general plan aims to recover the city's historical districts, carry out one-off operations to recompose the fabric of the city and set up strategies so that the former independent municipalities absorbed into the city can become focal points once again. This last idea is intended to enable the city's inhabitants to identify themselves more and more closely with their specific districts and counteract a strong process of centralization which results in outlying areas becoming marginalized and condemned to a slow decay by the ever-increasing pull of the city center. The following slides show the practical result of this strategy in terms of specific programs and operations. The land use directive being applied follows. No. One moment. The land use directive being applied as follows. ¿Se me entiende más o menos o no? Vale. The land use directive being applied as follows. The status of Bilbao, the economic capital of a broad region, and its resulting strategic role in the future European city system are being established. A strategic plan is being applied which has led to Bilbao being selected as the home of the European Occupational Safety Agency and the European Software Institute. A boost has also been given to the construction of the superport aimed at making Bilbao the main Atlantic port of Southern Europe. The territorial plan is being applied as follows. The urban fabric of the metropolis is being restructured to give more importance to its original areas. The value of the river is also being stressed as a significant part of the area and a link between the different parts of the metropolis. Land occupied by obsolete and derelict industrial and port facilities is being reclassified. Movement within the city is being facilitated by the construction of the new metro underground railway, the restoration of the remaining transport networks, and the construction of the new axis, bridges and thoroughfares. Various passenger stations are being built, including the Bilbao passenger interchange, which will strengthen the city transport links with the other regions by bringing together train, bus and metro services. The city airport is also being enlarged to increase its handling capacity. The general land use plan for Bilbao involves the commencement of the transformation of the Abando Ibarra area. This landmark operation set the trend for other schemes to redevelop Bilbao's waterfront areas. The Guggenheim Museum, designed by Frank Gehry, and the Conference and Music Center symbolize the vision of Bilbao as an economic and cultural capital. The general plans aim functionally to decentralize Bilbao also involves the construction by the City Hall Architect Office of district centers in Begoña and La Lóndiga to take municipal administration offices into each district. These centers will also have amenities which will decentralize the social and cultural life of the city. All these points will be shown in the following slides. Lo tengo escrito, o sea que sí, si se me entiende bien, sigo. Que sí, vale, pues venga. Te lo digo así. Entonces, si lo vas a decir, así. Este fondo funciona. Bueno, el fondo es para señalarlo. No. Este primer grabado refleja el Bilbao medieval y su crecimiento hacia el Arenal, y en él se hace evidente la relación de la ciudad con el puerto, con las primitivas estructuras, el puente y la iglesia.
This is an etching of the medieval city, showing the relationship between the medieval part of the city with the riverside, the river, the bridge, and the surrounding areas of the original city of Bilbao.
Hay una constante evolución en Bilbao en la medida de que la ciudad está en contacto con el puerto, y en la medida que el puerto se va liberando, estas áreas de puerto generan nuevas zonas de interés para la ciudad.
Yeah. The constant in the evolution of the city is that the port is always changing its position and displacing, and that displaced left area is occupied by the city. So the city itself is occupying the land left over by the movement of the port.
Este plano corresponde al Bilbao de la mitad del siglo pasado. No. Pero es difícil porque los autores, cada uno lo han indicado. Este plano corresponde a la mitad del siglo pasado y refleja la situación de Bilbao antes de que se produzca el ensanche hacia esta zona y empiece el desplazamiento del puerto también hasta esta otra zona.
Yeah, this is a etching from the second part of the 19th century, showing the development of the city towards the west. He pointed to the top part of the river, and the whole city is developing towards that side.
Bueno, explicarles que están puestos de tal manera que no corresponden con la orientación, sino con el grafismo del plano.
Okay. They are not oriented in the north-south direction, but on the kind of more convenient kind of orientation of the graphic of the map itself.
Bueno, esta es la ciudad medieval.
That's a medieval city over there.
Con su ensanche particular.
With its development, later development.
Y a finales del siglo pasado se redacta el proyecto de ensanche.
All that area there is developed in the 19th century.
En el cual la zona de Abandoibarra aparece como área portuaria.
That's the bankside, which is a port area, the riverside.
Y realmente y realmente durará pues como 20 años el proyecto de este ensanche hasta que hace falta ya ensancharlo más por el crecimiento de la propia ciudad. Este es el proyecto de Federico Ugalde.
That project you've seen before takes about 20 years to develop, and when it's finished, there's a need to enlarge it, and that's a project for another architect. Federico Ugalde is his name.
En 1929 se produce ya una comarcalización de Bilbao hacia la ría, esto es el Cantábrico.
The whole in the 20s, the whole city develops towards the river, towards the seaside along the river, and it becomes a sort of conurbation.
Como se puede observar que Bilbao está constreñido por las montañas que le rodean y su desarrollo natural es hacia el mar.
Yeah, because the city is surrounded by mountains, so its development is restricted by the geography. So it has to develop towards the sea because it's the only direction possible.
A lo largo del tiempo el puerto también se va desplazando y, como decía antes, liberando espacios singulares dentro de la ciudad.
So the port itself is also moving at the same time that the city is developing, shifting its position from the original position in the old city towards the sea.
Esto es el aspecto actual de la conurbación de Bilbao.
So this is the current situation, current view of the Bilbao city conurbation.
Sí, la ciudad vieja.
That's the old city.
El ensanche del siglo pasado.
That's the 19th century development.
Y aquí estaría el mar Cantábrico con el superpuerto.
That's the sea there with the superport.
En esta área aún se ve Abandoibarra en su función de puerto.
That's the old docklands, which are abandoned at the moment.
Que ha desarrollado el proyecto César Pelli, como luego vemos.
Which is a project developed there by César Pelli.
Este es un esquema de las directrices territoriales de las que he hablado antes, en las cuales se establece el valor potencial de Bilbao dentro de toda el área de Euskadi.
That shows the kind of urban directives for the development of the area, showing the relationship of the city of Bilbao with the rest of the Basque country.
Este es el plan territorial del que he estado hablando, con las diferentes áreas de oportunidad entre las que está Abandoibarra.
Those are the main areas to redevelop in the program. At the number 8 there is the old docklands that are going to be redeveloped.
Bilbao queda en esta zona.
That's the city of Bilbao there.
Y esto ya son poblaciones de la conurbación metropolitana.
Those are the suburbs or suburban populations of the conurbation, Bilbao conurbation.
La vista actual de la conurbación.
That's the conurbation as it is now.
Y las propuestas del plan territorial reflejadas más o menos.
And those are the current proposals for the development of the bankside.
Este es el detalle de una de las propuestas
That's the detail of one of the proposals.
con las que personalmente no sé si estoy muy de acuerdo.
He doesn't like them, but you know, that's the way they are.
Este es el plan general que hemos aprobado este año.
And there's a map or plan of the plan of the city as it's been approved now.
Esta es la zona de Abando Ibarra.
That's the old document there.
Aquí está el puente peatonal del señor Calatrava.
That's a bridge that is going to be designed by Mr. Calatrava.
La estación intermodal.
That's a interchange station.
Sí.
By Michael
El metro que discurre, ya lo veremos luego en un esquema del propio metro.
The tube by Norman Foster.
El Museo Guggenheim.
The Guggenheim Museum by Gary.
Y el Palacio de Congresos.
And that's an exhibition hall.
Esta es la zona de Abando Ibarra,
That's the old documents there.
que es una de las primeras actuaciones como área de oportunidad para la regeneración de...
And that's the first area where they're going to develop the whole city.
El proyecto de César Pérez.
That's a project by Cesar Pelli.
El jurado, del que fui secretario sin voto, el jurado estimó que quizás la arquitectura presentaba alguna cuestión contradictoria.
The jury of the competition thought that the design wasn't appropriate or needed to be changed in certain aspects.
Sí. Por ejemplo, la torre ya no se contempla
Because the tower
en el último proyecto de
that
César.
tower is not in the final proposal that is now going to be put forward to the city. It's severe.
En cualquier caso, se valoraba la solución de boulevard integrando la ría a la ciudad.
But they like the strict proposal that integrates the river with the city, links the city with the river.
Y algunas de las integraciones paisajísticas del pueblo.
And the landscape is general. They thought it was quite good.
El Museo Guggenheim de Franguero.
This is Guggenheim Museum by Frank Gehry.
La adjudicación del museo fue mediante un concurso restringido de la propia Fundación Guggenheim.
There was a competition organized by the Guggenheim Foundation, and he won it.
Sí, y según el propio Frank Gehry, retoma elementos de la propia ría de Bilbao, como grúas, barcos en construcción, etc.
Frank Gehry says that his inspiration for this building is the existing cranes and boats and ships that were built there a long time ago. So he's taking those elements and trying to introduce them into his building.
Otra vista del Museo Guggenheim,
Yeah, there's the same building again.
en el cual integra un puente actualmente existente.
So the bridge actually goes through the building.
Esta es una vista de los antiguos astilleros de Euskalduna,
Right, that's the shipyards as they were.
donde se situará el Palacio de Congresos y la Música.
That's a new exhibition hall by a young Spanish architect, Federico Soriano.
Federico Soriano, que según dice en el propio texto del proyecto, han pretendido recoger la imagen de un buque en construcción en los propios astilleros.
They're trying to represent the sort of the image of the project is a big ship under construction, which is somehow still built there in the dock.
El esquema del metro de Bilbao,
That shows the plan of the tube system for Bilbao.
Cantábrico,
There's a sea there.
el ensanche del siglo pasado,
That's the 19th century development,
la vieja ciudad.
the old city.
Son dos líneas,
There are two main lines,
una por la margen derecha
one in the right side of the river,
y otra por la margen izquierda, que se unen en la zona de Oriente.
they both link in the El Orieta.
Este es un esquema del metro a través del ensanche del siglo pasado.
That shows how the tube crosses the 19th century development.
Diferentes aspectos del proyecto de señalética del propio.
And those are the graphic and signs in the tube.
En el proyecto del metro, Santiago Calatrava pretende poner en evidencia el carácter de la caverna. Ay, perdón.
No one poster tries to make it look like a cave or.
Estaba recordando que Santiago Calatrava participó en el concurso para el metro con un excelente proyecto.
Mr. Calatrava also took part in the competition and he liked the project, that's why he thought that.
Bien. Norman Foster pone en evidencia el concepto de caverna y crea los elementos de mezanina colgantes que permiten la visualización de todo, de parte del ovoide.
So the idea is that there is a skywalk that allows you to see both sides of the tube. Really, I mean, it's very simple.
Esta es la imagen arquitectónica de la salida del metro en Bilbao.
That's the image of the exit of the tube as designed by Foster.
Los bilbaínos nos hemos puesto el nombre de Fosterito.
And they call it Fosterite.
La estación intermodal.
That's the interchange station by Michael Wilford Partners.
Sí, el proyecto lo iniciaron Stirling y Wilford.
This was originally started by Michael Wilford and Jim Sterling.
Pero esta versión ya está desarrollada íntegramente por Wilford y Partners.
But this project is all developed by Michael Wilford and Partners.
Esta es otra visión del proyecto de la intermodal.
Another view of the station.
El proyecto de Santiago Calatrava del aeropuerto.
Yeah, this is the airport designed by Mr. Calatrava.
Y otra visión del mismo proyecto que se integra en el paisaje, los aparcamientos. Bueno, yo creo que esto lo contará mejor Santiago.
And he'll explain that to you.
El Ayuntamiento de Bilbao, bueno, eso era en el contexto que habíamos preparado. Vamos a pasar ya esta diapositiva, pero ha planteado una descentralización general.
That's a type of the council, but the major political idea is that there is a decentralization of council power in the area.
Este es el antiguo Ayuntamiento de Begoña.
That's the old town hall of one of these conurbations called Begoña, which is disappeared.
Que nos da una idea de que Bilbao está formado por pueblos que se han ido anexionando.
So Bilbao is made out of villages that have been joining together over time.
Y con el proceso de descentralización,
And with this decentralization of power that is going on now,
lo que se ha pretendido es devolver una cuota de centralidad a estos barrios.
they're trying to give some power back to these old villages that were villages before, but now are parts of neighborhoods of the city.
Mediante los proyectos de centro de distrito.
Well, they're developing this new council or council town halls.
Este corresponde a Begoña.
This is the equivalent of that old building that was seen before as designed now.
Y esto es un antiguo almacén de vinos.
That was an old wine market, something similar to Covent Garden.
Que se recupera también para centro de distrito.
They're also using it for sort of town hall now.
Para el área central del Sánchez de Bilbao.
For the central area of Bilbao.
Y por fin el puente peatonal de Santiago Calatrava.
This is a pedestrian bridge by Santiago Calatrava.
Que de alguna manera nos da un poco la idea de todo el proceso que a través de los diferentes planes han permitido ir actuando hasta llegar a elementos de diseño urbano tan significativos.
Yeah, this is a kind of a symbol of the whole strategy for the city, where they started with big developments, but the final aim is to achieve small city furniture or small developments for the city that are of a very small scale.
Nada más.
Thank you.
City is undertaking. If they go forward with all the projects simultaneously, it will probably break even the bank that are there. which is an incredible attempt to bring together a large number of projects in a very short period of time. I think we're going to try and leave, if we can, about 10 minutes towards the end of this session for questions. So if there are any questions relating to the Basque region and the development of these various projects, then we'll take them up there. In the meantime, I'd be very pleased indeed to welcome Santiago Calatrava to the AA. First time, I think. First time, I think, at the AA. He's been invited a number of times before, never managed to squeeze it in. He's here at the express invitation of the BCA, the British Cement Association, who are celebrating their Diamond Jubilee this evening, and he's the guest lecturer at the Diamond Jubilee celebrations at Canary Wharf. And it's marvellous that he's found the time to come to the AA and talk specifically about the two projects, the footbridge and the Bilbao Sondica airport terminal proposals for the city of Bilbao. Santiago Calatrava.
Small city on the sea, and I remember working in the square that I hear many people speaking around and I couldn't understand anyone. It was as being in China, something like that. They were speaking Basque. And for me, as someone coming from the other side of the country, from Valencia, having also another mother language as Castilian, my mother language is the language that we used to speak in Valencia. People say Valencian or Catalan. And who is a Latin language. It was such a surprise to see people speaking as I say, you, when I have been making Japan, something like that, I couldn't understand really any word. This made for me open my eyes. I was somewhere else, as I expected to be in Spain, where we are speaking several languages, but we speak all Latin languages. So this makes, in my opinion, a very particular impression about the country. Also, at the other side, I have been in those years going and coming to Bilbao, San Sebastian, from Switzerland. So I flew to Geneva, for example, and then from Geneva to Bordeaux, and then someone picked me up with a car in Bordeaux, and then we came along the Lande, going south, and then into the French Basque Country, and then into the Spanish Basque Country. I also understood that the frontier coming from south is much more abrupt. There are a lot of mountains to traverse before you arrive to the Basque Country. But coming from the north, you come very easily. Probably the Basque, they arrive to those places, along the Pyrenees, along the north side of the Pyrenees, or maybe along Perigord, and so on. Then, also, another impression, which is very interesting, it is once you arrive to the south of France, into the French Basque Country, you have the impression of almost the idea of an idyllic agricultural society developing into high developed tourism. I'm speaking of Biarritz and those places. But in the fact, the French Basque Country is almost, in its integrity, is very, very much related to the agriculture, and with a lot of old traditions of. And then once you go over the frontier, you arrive to a place called Pasaya, and then you see those blocks, 10, 12 stories, in the most unnatural places. And then you look at those blocks, you see a lot of balconies, and then you start to see shirts, pants, all kind of clothes, hanging there, making kind of flags. So you understand there is something has changed. You are in the same country, in fact, with the same people. Something has changed. What has changed? 40 years of Franco dictatorship. This is the change. And of course, many, many years of bad work instrumented by architects or by instrumented architects. And so on, you can go until Bilbao, seeing this extremely hard contrast between, I don't want to say a lovely landscape because it is all different and lovely. It's a very hard landscape, sometimes with valleys and mountains and forests and so on. I don't know if this I cannot do a comparison. Sometimes it reminds me very much, especially when you go between San Sebastian and Bilbao. There is a place in which you can also go into Victoria. I can't say the name now because I don't know the geography good enough. But it remains also even Switzerland. The zone between around Chur, when you started going to Graubünden before you arrived to San Bernardino. It remains very much. It remembers me very much those mountains and this kind of sometimes open valleys and narrow valleys. And then you arrive to those cities as Bilbao, who has been also in his whole history as an industrial place and so on, very hardly handled through almost the very direct profit-directed city intervention. And because that, this exhibition makes me, in my eyes, exceptional. Because for the first time, big planning is done in this city. People are trying to understand what is the real, not only as a place to work, but also as a place to develop, as a place to live. And they are also doing that not only because they are living there and they love their own place and so on, which the Basques do very much from his own country, but also because they have understood it is the only key to project the city into the future. It is impossible to continue with the economy that we have been having many, many years ago, nevertheless, because thanks God the dictator is finished and we have now a democracy, but also because the Basque country is also trying to become, as Catalonian, a little bit to conserve the highest standard of development in industry and other things. I mean, industry, not more from the sector of the iron manufacture or shipping or things like that, but in other sectors. This is a little bit the resume in order that you understand what are my impressions very briefly. At the other side, I have to say, from the human side, I like very much this place. I always, it is also quite interesting that after having been something like 12 years away from my country, I started even more, 14 years. I started coming back to the country, and all the few things that I have done there, they are all in the periphery. They are in Catalonia, they are in Valencia, maybe they are in Sevilla, and also in Bilbao, and also in the Canary Islands. Never in the center, which is actually funny. They don't mind anything, but it's also emphasize a little bit this very diverse character of Spain as a country, which many people will not suspect, not only linguistically, but also from the point of view of the people and the understanding of life. Now, you see, I have prepared a series of slides which are a bit boring because they are only slides on the project, and I saw the two slides that Elias Mas showed are much beautiful than my own one. So I want just to explain you very briefly with the blackboard the ideas of the two projects in order that you get a more direct understanding of sketching a little bit what I wanted to do with the airport and what are the main thoughts and also of this small bridge.
said before, the landscape around Bilbao and basically the whole north part of the Basque Country is quite movement. There are a lot of mountains, not very high valleys, and so we are also in a situation in which there are some mountains. The city of Bilbao will be at this side, and then there is a flat place in which the airport should come, and then again it goes up into another mountain chain. And the airport has to be here. And then my idea was also the idea of the forest from the mountain coming down with a building in the town. And at the other side, another building is the central park. Both, you see, if the development of the mine access of the airport is this here, this building will stay somewhere here. And in front of it, at the other side, we will have the control tower. And then the street, the road to arrive into the airport is somewhere here, and then it makes, for circulation reason, it makes a development around an area in which we have decided to put here symmetrically also parking. Now, the possibility of extension of the airport is very simple. Those wings are now allowed to have 6 fingers. In a later phase, wings can be extended, conserving central building, and then we can extend with fingers on both sides. Arriving until 24, which will make a very big airport. 7 million travelers a year. We have now projected it for a possibility of 3 million passengers a year, which is double as much as the actual airport has to pay. So I want to emphasize that also it is this idea. It can be understood in the slides that in the fact the airport is very, very low in the 2 buildings, as low as possible. And then only the main building becomes a signal character as much as the tower is in front of it as a signal character. Nevertheless, because I would like to have the wings and all the arrivals, roads and parking very much integrated into the landscape. This is a first step to understand the building itself. The building itself, it has a plan which is basically triangular, and it is conceived in 2 levels. You know, airports can be in several typologies of airports. There are those who are in 1 level, basically, or those who have 2 levels, 1 level for the arrivals and another level for departure. Very common understanding of typology of airport. Then the roof will do like this. There is floor here, and then down there is another one. People arrive here in a common level, and then they are waiting here, waiting at this level, then they go from here to stairs into the level in which they can pick up the baggage, and they go directly outside. There is almost a waiting area who is achieved under this canopy. It's not achieved in for people who are waiting people to come. They are not, in this case, I chose to don't do too much closed spaces, but to let that almost open. Also, you can arrive with your car almost to be as a little bit like in a bus station or even in a train station. I try to take away the character of the airport as a very close area in which when you are in the airport, only the airport, also recreating areas who are almost open close. And then also the 2 wings who are here on the side, they have also the same character, very open into the plain area. And also we have tried to differentiate interior volumes and heights. This height here is very tall, those here are a bit smaller. You see, is with the fact that also conceptually, from the point of view of the organization, is very simple. You arrive from this side, you have a big facade because many people should park here behind. Then you go into the checking area, and then there is a security control area, and then you choose the way in which you are going. And when you arrive, it is exactly the same way. You arrive in this direction, and then from both sides, you go into the baggage area, and then you go outside. This is basically, I would say, from the functional point of view, there is no any special characteristic. From the construction point of view, maybe there is something that I would like to emphasize. It is that the building itself has a quite big facade. And we then we plan like this. And we has recreated, this is the facade plan. In order to recreate some breakers, we have invited, or it is a street project, with a small machinery who permits to develop this wing on the side. And this wing also to the side. Centralized. So that this roof will get automatically extended like this for the concrete. It's just an idea that I like quite much because it is, as I have been doing in other buildings, a small try to do a bit of transformable architecture in this case for sound breakers, so that sometimes we have done it for doors, for roof, or something like that, and even in the this characteristic room, and then here behind the roof, in fact, is only supported by 3 main arcs, and then the tile of the roof, in which they are all the tests, is done with longitudinal beams, and this is half transparent material. It's a translucent part. Maybe it's the climate in the Basque Country is quite similar to English climate. So from the point of view of humidity, temperatures, and so on. This is just some comments to the project of Bilbao. Also, there is another particularity. This we have done a garage in which the facade, which is quite long, more than 120 meters long, is put in a kind of small valley, so that even if the garage is like that, we will recognize it between 2 hills. Like that. This is one hill, and this is another hill. And here is the garage. The garage is a box between the 2 hills, but however, it is cut into the garage. And for this particular case, I propose to suspend the facade, not the building. The building itself is supported by pillars. But in order to emphasize the parallelism of the facade with the ground, the facade is suspended. So there is no pillar, there are just 2 cables, the section is something like that, 2 cables. And this is a translucent facade with the cables that just stabilized laterally, and here we have the different walls of the garage, and this is the border. As it was a brick, I mean, it will be a brick, we may be able to do like that, but as a simple gesture, to just to take control of the situation and try also, particularly in this case, to relay the building as much as possible to landscape. Because the 2 hills are like this, and the garage is put in between. The accesses are done like this. So there is behind us, in front of it, there is a small valley, and then here, like I said before, it is this is one. And then to the other one, I hope I am not boring you too much with my comments, but I think it's the most direct way to explain. this Atmosphere. And this bridge has had two etaps. First of all, I present a project, and then the client changed. And taking advantage of the change of the client, I think I has had the opportunity to restart the project and make evolution and make it as something soft. And the river that we have to go across is, well, the project is in the middle of the city. There are buildings at both sides, a small promenade at one side, but also buildings at the side, and there are trottoirs. Then I have to, if this is the top section, if this is the top section, it is necessary that I let a certain profile or you see, I have to conserve a certain profile in order that shipping is allowed. So it is necessary to do the bridge as high as this. On the other side, if I do, for example, a bridge like that, will be not possible because I have to jump over the street, and then I have also to have another profile. So, according to those conditions, I decided to move into the bridge in this direction, and in this direction, and in this direction, and in that direction. I make this a little bit longer because it is around, and this a bit shorter because it's thick. And then the mine circulation will arrive from this side, we know that, for the orientation of the bridge. And so I also try to make that these people move from one side to the other in the most safe and consequence. And now this almost the bridge is finished because and then there is the most staircase here. It is a turn back because it has to be long enough that, I mean, turn like that comes here. And it has to be big enough in order that I chose also the idea of an arc because I didn't, the span is quite, it's not very big, it's just 70 meters, but it's quite a very design. So that I decided to go in a low profile bridge, very high, and then make it there. And in order to bring it very lightly, I use just those are basically the thought. However, you see the bridge in itself, if you start a little bit thinking how it's done, you see traditional bridges, you see they have several parts. Just like you understand, they have, for example, if you make a bridge between two embankments, the bridge will have here an embankment, and then this is the structure. So this is strongly anchored, this is the ramp. Or even if the bridge is like that, you see, as you see sometimes in highways, the two borders of the bridge plays an important role. Even if the bridge is like this, the weight of the bridge arriving to the ground is quite from a big. You know, it's not only a construction problem because you have to do the foundation and so on, or here also the foundation that you can see. Even here you have these bearings and everything and the precision. It was always done here in the beginning and end of the bridge has played an important. In this case, I just maybe unconscious, but I wanted to emphasize so much that the bridge is very light that I just took those elements. And I turn, if you want that, like this, and make the support still behind, so that the bridge is a bit like that. Just bottom. Very simple. It's just there. What I want to emphasize is, you see, as you see in the airport, maybe the airport is still much longer, or as you see in the bridge, the working material, see, maybe it has a very subjective background. We may maybe also see the things in another way, because certainly there are around 50 different bridges were possible in this place to solve the same problem. But the working material is very thin. It's not very, you understand what I mean? It's not very solid. Always, you see, it's a problem of landscape, two hills, the facade of the parking, or in this case, the supports of the bridge, or trying to make a contrast between this parking and the central parking. Okay. Now I think we can go ahead and see some slides. As you see here with the model maker, we try to represent a kind of forest. In the fact, there are many trees going up into the hill. And this is the front facade with the central building, the two wings will be extended at this side and on the other side with plants who can go up in both sides. The next. I have also to say the project is something like 6 years old. We have been working. We have modified it 3 times, almost in the same basic idea. But I started working on this project, I think something like 6, maybe 7 years ago. And we are now starting to build it. We are picking now for the campus. So this is what you will see. This is a second model in which I was more interested to see solving the problem between water here, looking for the reflex. And this is the central building. Next. This is the second phase in which the line has to do a big parking area, as you see here, with the third facade. This is quite a long span, as I tell you, more than 100 meters, and it's very low curve, and it's just taking advantage of the situation in the valley, creating here a kind of two-tunnel. As you may maybe see in the sculptures of Cristo, two-tunnel waddles, something like that, just running or putting something suspended. And here it should be a pre-night. Next. These are also two views of the third model that we have done. I think this is now the also another view in which we are emphasizing. The model is not very big, so we couldn't show the two wings on the side and so on, because it's just at the scale of maybe 1 to 150, and we can maybe the next. Yes, you see. These are some details. This is a transition between the roof that I would like to see in a room and here of the half transparent glaze part. Here are also some details of the transition on the side. The green is driving, is going to open a new roof. This is part of the facade of the restaurant, and here down on the other side. This is the back side of the building with the area of the cars. Then the area of the desk, and downstairs it is the place of the so this is the departure and the drive. Also, in both sides, it will be good here. Because I am thinking to put so much trees before I arrive to that work, those areas will be just green, garden that are making this area and here. It's a kind of good area. The next. And now those are, I think, 4 or 5 pictures on the small bridge. As I tell you, this property is in concrete, and this is cantilever. And the bridge is, this is all done, and in contrast, we did the bridge is in steel, and this is the staircase, and this is another, the treatment of the ramp next. The treatment of the ramps is done with glass bars, and the treatment of the platform of the bridge is done with steel and glass. So the lighting of the bridge is coming from down. We will have this down lamp, and then we will not have another light on the bridge, and the light comes from the pavement. You see here also this is the detail of the way how the concrete releases the steel. The steel, basically also the bridge is built by using two pipes. There is one pipe down to the bridge and the other making the arc. Then there are single ribs and the two pipes are fixed because the last rib is again supported on the concrete. So it permits a torsional broken neck. Here also you see a little bit the corner. Those are details that has to be very nicely done and forth to be trying to see as much attention to detail. And here also the detail of the support in the corner. This is as much as you can get from a model. I mean, the model is really 175. And here also you see, as I tell you, those are glass blocks in the building, who will be also lighted from down, and here they are glass plates. And also those will be lighted through the lighting we situated down those plates, and will be lighted. Thank you very much for your attention.
Where, of course, the Bilbao 2000 exhibition is. You can't visit today, but it's open normal weekdays and weekends. There's a catalogue that goes with it. We'd like to see your comments in the visitor's book. Maybe we could leave the questions to later events in the series. Many thanks for coming. Thank you very much.